Welcome to Shamanism 112. We're talking about blue truths today. Blue happens to be my favorite color. Well, I like pink too, but blue and pink are my favorite. And blue was my first word, although it wasn't in English. I said blå, which is the Swedish word for blue. Blue is a color that for most of our existence as human beings didn't have a word. And blue is actually not just my favorite color, but it's the favorite color of most human beings. Blue is the most favorite color for almost every country on our planet. Here's me in blue. Why am I talking about blue now? Well, because we're working on the throat chakra. And the throat chakra is where we find our voice, we speak our truth, and we sing praises for ourselves and others. This chakra is blue, and it's associated with speaking up and expressing ourselves, but also with being heard and listening. Philosophically, this chakra is associated with truth, clarity, and responsibility. The throat chakra is situated in the center of your neck or in your throat at the thyroid gland, and the thyroid gland regulates energy in the body through temperature, growth, and metabolism. It's linked to our mouth, our jaw, our tongue, our pharynx, our palate, our shoulders, and our neck. And the way that I understood the throat chakra from an early stage is that this is the filter as well of what we allow in and what we give out. So the throat is really the first line of defense for our immune system. So if you find yourself with coughing and a sore throat, that's a good sign that your immune system is working. When your immune system is not working, that stuff will go deeper into your stomach, for example, and you'll get stomach diseases or other things. So here are some other little signs of your throat chakra being in harmony and balanced: when it's under active or kind of closed, or when it's too open. So one thing that it doesn't say on here is complaining, but there's a whole other presentation about complaining as part of the Visuddha chakra, so you can check that out as well. So let's talk about blue. Blue is the color of all inclusiveness. You see it everywhere, right? Anything that is vast and beyond our perception tends to be blue, whether it's the ocean or the sky. Anything that's larger than us, we see as blue. And we have a lot of symbols that are blue. And blue, according to color theory, is, security, trust, loyalty, responsibility. Do we agree with these things? This is up to you. What does blue mean for you? And then I just wanted to share this little thing. Working on this presentation about blue, and then I went to go to the bathroom where I'm sitting. That's outside. This is the light in the corridor to the toilet, which is over there. No filter, huh? This is synchronicities. So, blue. We live on a blue planet, apparently, so they say. But when we look at this picture here, so you have the Earth on the left. You know what planet is on the right? That's Neptune. Shouldn't Neptune be called a blue planet? Anyway, so blue is the rarest color in the world. Here are some blue flowers. This is the blue butterfly pea, which blue butterfly pea tea is an important ingredient in Ayurvedic medicine and is reputed to help with memory, stress reduction, and depression. In Chinese medicine, butterfly pea is used for enhancing the female libido. Is it blue though, or is it purple? Question. So of more than 280,000 known flowering plant species, less than 10% produce blue flowers. This is the cornflower. We love her, right? So whether it comes from chemistry or physics, what we can say is that when we find blue in nature, it's never sad. These are the American robin's blue eggs. And the blue color in the robin eggs are due to biliverdin, a pigment that is deposited on the eggshells when the female lays the eggs. There's some evidence that suggests that biliverdin indicates healthier female and brighter blue eggs. So when the eggs are laid by a healthier female, the males are more interested in their young. And actually, most blue colors in animals are not caused by chemical pigments, but rather by physics and the way that the light bounces off the surface. So blue-winged butterflies like this, blue morpho or the blue monarch, have layered nanostructures on their wing scales that manipulate light layers and cancel out certain colors and project this fluorescent blue that you can see on the picture. A lot of the birds, like blue jays, have a wing design that's quite scattered, so that it only allows the blue light to escape, and that's why we call them blue. But actually, instead of mixing pigmental alteration, blue is achieved in many animals by making structures that change the wavelength of light. So it looks like it's blue to us, but it's not really. The only exception in nature, the only true blue, is this Obrina olive-winged butterfly. It's the only known animal to produce a true blue pigment. These are poison dart frogs, so they're not really blue. How is this all working? Another thing that we consider to be blue is turquoise. I'm referring now to the stone or the crystal, not the color, even though turquoise, yeah, it's a blue color too. Lapis lazuli is another blue crystal. This is the blue eye in Albania, which is a really deep hole. This is the marble cathedral in Chile, which is a blue cave. This is the crystalline turquoise lake in the Jiangsu National Park in China. This is the blue grotto in Capri. This is a really nice blue beach somewhere. And these are some blue paints. Now, tell me something. What color is the sky? Are you sure? So up until the 13th century, people actually considered the sky to be white because it was light during the daytime. So when you see a picture like this, for example, you can see the sky is white. In classical Arabic and Persian poetry, they actually refer to the sky as the green. And the sky is sometimes pink, is it not? And at night, of course, the sky is black, or perhaps, clear, because we can see straight through it into space. So, final answer. What color is the sky? The reason why the sky appears blue is a phenomenon that they call Rayleigh scattering. This scattering, similar to the refraction of light in animals that look blue to us, is a scattering of electromagnetic radiation. Light is a form of radiation by particles of a much smaller wavelength. Sunlight is scattered by the particles in the atmosphere, and what comes down to Earth is called diffuse sky radiation. And only actually about 1/3 of that light is scattered. The smallest wavelengths of light tend to scatter easier. The shorter wavelengths correspond to blue hues, so that's why when we look at the sky, we see it as blue. At sunrise and sunset, the angle of sunlight enters at a different angle, and so blue and green and shorter wavelength of light are scattered, so we see more orange and red colors in the sky. Also, the ocean is not blue because it reflects the sky. I used to believe that, but actually the water appears blue because it absorbs red light. When light hits the water's molecules absorb some of the photons from the light. Everything absorbs at a different wavelength. So like if you're wearing a green t-shirt like I am today actually, it absorbs red. So as a result, the remaining colors reflect back at the one who's looking. So in shallow bodies of water, like a drinking glass, light penetrates it completely and there's not enough water to absorb the photons, so we see the water as colorless. When we have deeper water, not all the wavelengths can fully penetrate the liquid because there's too many water molecules in the way of the photons. So the water molecules absorb all the red wavelengths from the light, making it reflect blue. This is also why shallow water appears less or lighter blue than deeper. Less absorption, less reflection. So would you believe me if I told you that blue butterflies, roses, and blueberries, blue raspberries, aren't actually blue? Because our eyes dupe us. Our eyes fool us. The color blue that's found in food, plants, and animals lack a chemical compound that makes them blue. And that's why the blue pigment is so rare. So the majority of blue colors found in food are actually deep purple pigments. They come from a compound called anthocyanin. This pigment can be found in eggplants, cherries, and strawberries as well. And it comes from the Greek anthos and kyanos, which means dark blue flower. Plants also contain chlorophyll, which is a green pigment that causes them to be green. So anthocyanin can produce red and black shades as well as purple and blue, depending on the chemical components. So here's interesting as well. So in most ancient languages, from Old Irish to Japanese, green and blue were the same word. And in early languages like Greek, Hebrew, and Chinese, they didn't even have a word for blue. The Greeks had a word, glaukos, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it could mean something like light blue. But it was more a feeling than a color, and it could also actually mean gray, yellow, or brown. The Hebrew word, tekelet, describes a colorant which comes from a mollusk that could be used to dye garments bluey, kind of purple. Egyptians also had a word for their blue pigment, irtiu, which is the first synthetic pigment ever created. After the fall of Rome, the complicated process of making Egyptian blue was lost, and so was the word for it, caureolium. And since the lexicon had a gap for blue, most modern words for blue come from German and Arabic. Both these two cultures made and traded in blue. But if we look back in old paintings of rainbows, they didn't actually use the color blue. You see here, they only used red, yellow, and green. I'm not making this up. I have a few more examples. And also, back in this time, water was green. Water wasn't actually colored as blue on maps until the 17th century. It's quite interesting, right? How the things that we take for so obvious, like the ocean being blue, is a relatively new concept. Here's another painting. So it's only about 3,000 years ago that we figured out how to get this beautiful blue that we call ultramarine. It was the first truly blue pigment in the world, and it was extremely rare and expensive. This ultramarine was actually more valuable than gold, and painters used it only for most important things in paintings, like the Virgin Mary's robe. So only the true rich, the blue bloods, could afford ultramarine in their clothes. And it actually required red blood to bring blue to the world. There's a painter named Diesbach who was trying to create a red out of using cochineal. There's an insect that was used for making red dye. We use it today still for making everything from lipstick to ketchup. So he added iron sulfate mixed with potash. This is what we now call potassium. Anyway, the potash he used was contaminated with animal blood, which has iron in it, and instead of making red, he accidentally invented an affordable, long-lasting true blue. And so then we had these artists creating these amazing blue pieces of work, like Van Gogh's Starry Sky or the blue irises, and then Picasso. But what happened with Picasso and the blue period? Well, Picasso at the sort of later part of 1901 got into a deep depression, and he started using blue in his paintings. Most of these paintings are quite somber. They were painted in Barcelona and Paris, but they're now some of his most popular works, even though at the time nobody wanted to buy them. In both context and form, the paintings of Picasso's blue period convey a deep sense of loss and mourning. In terms of technique, they're monochromatic with austere lines and efficient composition. They have no indication of time or place. They represent a universal constancy of pain. And this is quite interesting because we do say blue, and like, why are you so blue when we talk about emotions? But when we then look at things like the color wheel, we say that blue is about responsibility, inner strength, creativity, calm, communication, honesty, all these things that are sort of represented by the throat and the third eye chakra. But when we talk about blue as an emotion, we think of it as being sad and depressed. So let's look a little bit about the light spectrum, because here's what's really interesting. In the big scheme of things, you're as blind as a bat. So the foundations of the light spectrum are that there are many colors. The colors in sunlight, the angle that solar light travels through at the atmosphere, the size of the particles, all of these things, the atmospheric molecules affect the way our eyes perceive color. And on the color scheme of things, you can see that at the higher end, like from cosmic rays to long wavelengths. What we see is that tiny little bit of visible light, what we can perceive. So here's another graph showing you the different wave patterns from ultraviolet to infrared. And it was only 350 years ago that Isaac Newton changed the world when he experimented with prisms that led him to divide the visible spectrum into 5 colors: red, yellow, green, blue, and violet. He later added orange and indigo because he wanted the number of colors to align with the ancient Greek belief in the power of the number 7. 7 chakras, 7 notes in a musical scale, 7 known planets. We have 7 days of the week. And now, 400 years later, you have a telephone in your pocket that can show you over 16.7 million colors, all with clearly defined hex codes. So coming back to this idea that, we used to think of green and blue as the same color for a long time in our human evolution. So green and blue are actually only separated by 35 nanometers on the visible light spectrum. They are closer than violet and indigo. So you can see that violet and indigo are separated by 45 nanometers. So again, what we can see out of the known waves that we're able to measure with our scientific instruments today, there might be more. It's really small. It's a small portion of light waves that exist that we know of. So for a long time, for the longest time, for a longer time than we've had blue, not only were green and blue one's color, but before that, we only considered 3 colors: black, white, and red. They're the first recognized colors in most civilizations. Black and white, obviously, light and dark. And then red, poisonous fruits, blood, menstruation. So colors are important, but in the beginning, there were only 3. And they were separated like this. So black included green, blue, and purple. White included yellow, and then red was its own thing. So eventually, yellow and green became their own colors. But like I said, for the longest time, we didn't talk about blue. We didn't even have words for blue. Here's another chart, more in depth. Now I want to talk about auras, because there's a lot of talk about, different color auras and what they mean. And again, sometimes I wonder if we superimpose ideas on color and frequency. But if you consider the colors of the chakras, and then you look at this color chart, it sort of is reflected into that rainbow. Now again, not all traditions put those colors on the chakras the way that we know them today, this kind of rainbow scale. That was something that was really pushed into the understanding of chakras in the hippie era in the 60s by white people. So anyway, if you have a blue aura, people say that means you're a strong communicator and a deep thinker, that you're passionate about helping others. Maybe people like Gwyneth like this idea because blue-blooded, right? So these ideas about what blue means is really superimposing our own ideas or perhaps our own limitations onto and again, we've only talked about blue for a really short time in the amount of time that we've been here. There's another thing about blue, which is used in postal workers, officers, in the police, sailors, meaning that the working class became blue colored. And then when we started getting jeans, and everybody's wearing blue, it's like the working class color is blue. Then I want to just look at some blue places, like the Blue Lagoon in Iceland, Jodhpur in India, which is a blue city, Santorini in Greece, where it's super blue. This place in Huáscar in Spain, which actually wasn't blue until the Smurfs movie was recorded there, and they painted the whole city blue. Or it's a town, really. It's a village, I suppose. Village is a more appropriate word. This is me in Huáscar with blue hair. Blue's my favorite color. And here's another picture of Huáscar. Oh, I don't know why, but I've put Santorini in here twice. This is a picture from Chefchaouen in Morocco. Here's more. Here's Chefchaouen at night. Now I want to talk about the Hindu gods, and not just the Hindu gods, because actually like a lot of the demons in Japanese myths are blue as well. Why are these entities, these deities, blue? So many different explanations, and I don't know which one is right, but one that I like is because they want to be seen as separate from normal people, to be inconceivable, to be inexpressible, to be beyond the grasp of the five senses. So the only way to express their vastness is through the use of blue. Here's more blue and more blue. How do you feel when you look at blue? Oh, I put myself in here again. Oh, for some reason I'm here in between the gods. Here we are with Vishnu. Vishnu is one of the incarnations of Shiva. They say he's blue or dark because he reflects the color of the cosmos. He's also supposed to reflect the color of dark storm clouds and the color of the moon. And some people believe that he's a result of Krishna's color. Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. So it might be that Krishna was blue first. But anyway, Vishnu is blue. So is Shiva. And the blue color of Shiva is there to help us see Shiva as the all-pervading reality. Remember, these gods are representations or metaphors for concepts. They're not kind of deities. I mean, depending on your level of perception, you can see them as gods and you can go and pray to them or do whatever. Or you can understand them as a philosophical representation. Blue indicates that, like the sky, what we have so far understood about the Supreme Truth is only one aspect, that the Supreme Truth has n infinite number of forms. Shiva is also known as Nilakanda, the one with the blue throat. That's because, so in the story, the ocean of milk, the Milky Way, was being churned by the devas, the demigods, and the asuras, the demons, and they were upsetting the structure of the universe by putting this hala hala poison, which had the power to destroy the universe. Make of this what you will. But Shiva soon realized that this poison, this hala hala, had the power to destroy the cosmos, and so he grabbed this poisonous foam in his hands and drank it to save the world. Parvati, his wife, got really worried about him, and she grabbed his neck to avoid the poison from entering into his body. And so the story goes that Shiva had a blue throat. I don't know why then they say that Shiva had a blue throat and then, his whole body is blue in the depictions. But there we are. Shiva is also known as nothingness. So Shiva, literally in Sanskrit, means that which isn't. Shiva means nothing. So modern science is proving to us today that everything comes from nothing and goes back to nothing. The basis of existence and the fundamental quality of the cosmos is nothingness. The galaxies are just a small, tiny happening. It's a sprinkling of experiences. The rest of everything is vast emptiness, which is referred to as Shiva. Shiva is the womb from which everything is born and the oblivion into which everything is sucked back. Everything comes from Shiva and goes back to Shiva. You can replace Shiva with whatever word you prefer. Shiva is also known as the Adi Yogi. Adi means the first, or the Adi Guru, the first guru. Shiva is the person, maybe a person, who first brought the teachings of yoga to the world. Yoga doesn't mean here to stand on your head or hold your breath or, all the crazy poses that you see on Instagram. Yoga now, what I mean by yoga is the science and the technology to know your essential nature, how life is truly created, and how we can experience it for ourselves. So Shiva refers to nothingness and Adiyogi, and in many ways the two are synonymous. This being, who's a yogi and a non-being, is the basis of existence. That's the same thing. So when you call someone a yogi or yogini, that means that this person has experienced existence as themselves. If you can contain existence within you, even for a moment, as a brief experience, you have to be in that nothingness. Only nothingness can hold everything. Something can never hold everything. So this idea of coming into this kind of blue perception of self means that we dissolve a bit into nothingness. I don't know. Isn't it confusing? Kali is another blue god. And Kali is standing on Shiva. And I just want to bring this in here because Kali is there to teach us that we can have mastery over life and death, all of us in our own hands. We can dismantle life and we can put it back together again. We can even kill the divine. We can kill God and bring it back. Until you have mastery of life, you can't do anything. You have to have power. Without power, you can do nothing. So when we see Kali, most often we see her standing on Shiva, which is literally symbolizing the feminine's mastery or power over the process of life. It means that the feminine can kill God and then rebirth him. Audacious, right? This is the technology of Tantra, yoga. Most people think that Tantra is all about, sexuality and whatever, but don't go there. Tantra does not mean promiscuous, free, loving sex. Tantra means method. Tantra means discipline. It's a technology, a method, a capability to unmake life and to create life again. Tantra means that we have such power over the system that we can dismantle life completely and put it back again. The story goes basically that, the demons were running the universe and Kali was asked to come and kill them all. They needed a big change maker. They needed something to help. So Kali starts to dance, cuts off all their heads. Those are the heads that you can see around her neck. And she cut off all their arms. So you can see those are the arms around her skirt. Well, the arms are a skirt. The skirt is made of arms. Let's see if I can say it right. And basically she was just running amok, running wild, going berserk is a nice word. And the other gods told Shiva, hey, stop your wife. So Shiva stepped in. Kali didn't see him. She stepped on him and almost about to kill him. That's why he's looking so peaceful, because he's just like, yeah, okay, I know. You can kill me, but I'll come back through you again. You got the power to rebirth me. Anyway, the reason why she's sticking her tongue out is because she was like, oh my God, I almost killed the person I love. So that's the story. Another blue people are the Celtic Picts. They used to paint themselves and tattoo themselves with a kind of dark blue pigment from a plant called the woad. They were apparently fearsome in battle and they were blue. Another blue is the Avatar movies, or the avatars in the Avatar movie. And they say that the reason why they chose them to be blue is to show them as other. Another blue is Odin, the All-Father from the Nordic gods. He had a blue eye, and the way to recognize him, because the Nordics believed that, the gods would come around and walk around in among people, is Odin used to wear a blue robe. Blue eye comes back here. The evil eye, or the what do you call it? The protector from the evil eye, right? We know this. We see this everywhere. Now, blue eyes, we have to talk about this too. Because actually the truth is that all eyes are the same color. The pigment that gives our eyes color, melanin, is brown. Somewhere about 7,000 years ago, there was a genetic mutation that happened. Some people say that's because these aliens came down and mated with humans. When they've looked into it, I don't know, because some people are saying it happened in Spain, other people are saying it happened in Egypt. Some people say, some genetic researchers at the University of Copenhagen say that this mutation comes back to a single Danish family. I don't know which is true, but about 7,000 years ago, that's where everybody seems to agree, say like between 6 to 10,000 years ago, something happened to one person on the planet who turned their eyes blue. Now, about 8% of the world's population is blue. I think it's about 25% of the United States population that have blue eyes. Don't quote me on that, though, because I could be wrong. But about 8% of the world population are blue. They're not blue or green because they contain pigmented cells. There is no blue pigment in blue irises. They just contain less brown. So brown eyes have a high concentration of melanin in their stroma, which is what absorbs most of the light that enters, and that's what gives them the dark color. Green eyes don't have a lot of melanin, but they have collagen deposits. And blue eyes, the color is entirely structural. So people with blue eyes have a completely colorless stroma with no pigment and has no excess collagen deposits. So that means that all the light that enters is scattered back into the atmosphere and creates this blue hue. So that means that blue eyes actually don't have a set color. They are just reflecting the amount of light available when you look at them. I have blue eyes, I'm doing air quotes. But of course, depending on how blue the sky is on a sunny day, my eyes will look more blue. And if I'm sitting in a dark room, they don't look blue at all. So there's no blue pigment in blue eyes. Another fact that's interesting is that blue lights are more sensitive to light and are higher risk for melanoma, aka cancer. Blue-eyed people apparently are more likely to be competitive, and a lot of children who have blue eyes at birth actually end up changing their color and having darker colors as they get older. So this is really interesting and cute, I think. So the last thing I want to say is of these 16.7 million colors that you can have on your phone screen, when your phone shows this blue screen, it's the blue screen of death. So blue, what did you find interesting about this? I just find it so interesting, because it's my favorite color, and to realize that it's the youngest color, and that for so many centuries, millennia, we didn't even think of it as a color, and we didn't perceive the sky as blue. So it just kind of shakes at the root of how we perceive truth. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments if any of this came across as interesting. Did you know all of this already? Did you learn anything new? Is there anything that you might think is true that you're now starting to wonder? Welcome. Welcome to reality as it is, not as we want it to be. Thank you for your time and your attention.